Welcome to A View from the Summit, where we explore the unique relationships between animals and humans, whether it's an Olympic partner or couch buddy, a working companion or unique pet, a world champion or someone you think the world of. Join us for a look at animals in our lives. Brought to you by Summit Animal Health. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another episode of View from the Summit. My name is Steve Searcy, and I'm your co-host. And man, what a show we have today for you. We're going to have a guy on here that speaks horse, speaks dog, speaks rooster, and now I hear he's learning to speak pigeon. How about that? It's going to be great. But before I introduce him, I get to introduce my co-host, Robin Benson, who lives way up north, just about that close to the Canadian border, where it's 20 below. She's not too smart, but boy, she's a good-looking lady. Otherwise, she'd move south. But anyway, how you doing, Robin? How are things on the ranch?
Oh, good, Steve. Thanks. And you're going to laugh even more because I did live in the South and I moved back north. So that might be even crazier. Proof positive that if you are a little different, you're in the right place listening today. If you're watching, listening, and you don't know me yet, Steve is in the central part of the country. I'm up north of Minnesota. We ranch, we raise beef, work on horseback, my husband, daughter, and I, and we love it. And today, I'm really excited to hear from Bobby. He's Cowboy's cowboy, not your typical cowboy. I mean, he does all the typical stuff, but that gets boring, right? So all the different stuff is what we're going to talk about. We love stories. We are all about the connections with animals, that unique connections, and animals are amazing. And so, Steve, tell us what we're in for today. It's a treat.
We get to speak with Mr. Bobby Kerr, who I swear talks all these languages I talked about. If you go online, you can see him riding Poncho, who is a Mustang. He gets rid of the bridle. Who needs that? And Poncho and he ride wherever they want to go. They go over a teeter-totter. He rides in at a rodeo in a car with a horse in the back seat. No, not in the trailer. Well, there's one in the trailer too, but sitting in the back seat. He's got all these animals talking to him. He talks to them. Bobby, can you speak our language today?
I'll try. I'll do my best.
Bobby, I'm going to just get right to it and ask, how do you communicate with all these different critters in such a unique way that they respond the way they do?
You know, I really don't know. I just go at it. I treat pretty much my horses, my rooster, my pigeons, everything like they're a dog. And, and my dog's my best buddy, so I try to be their best buddy. I haul them with me to town. I got a dog box on my truck, and I either load them up in it or I load my pigeons up now when it's not too cold, and I take them to the arena, and I take them everywhere. I even got sideboards on my old truck, and when the weather's decent, if I'm riding one, I'll jump them in the back and go to the coffee shop in town, which that's about a 12-mile round trip. I spend a lot of time with them.
That's great, Bobby. And would you, just for the fun of it, because some people haven't seen your act and what you do, would you just briefly describe how you enter the ring and what you're doing, what you're driving? That's a unique thing too. Would you just describe your act for me?
Well, I'll describe the current act. I've had several different acts. And the current act is really my signature act, I guess, the one that I did in the 2012 Mustang makeover. And it turned into, a rodeo specialty act. So I'll drive in there in my old 36 Chevrolet. I've got 3 dogs on the hood. Last year I had a rooster on there too. And I'll drive in there, and then one dog will jump off my hood and run back to the gate and grab whichever horse I'm going to ride that day and bring him to me on a lead rope. Then I get on him and I'll lope around and do some horsemanship stuff, like a run around the arena and
So
some,
basically,
you know,
you're reining. You rein. I mean,
yeah,
stops
lead
and
changes and
Yeah.
stops and spins and I got some fire on the running boards of my car. I'll jump over my car and then I'll lay him down and pull a shotgun out and shoot it over him. And I get them up and then I do basically a cutting demonstration. I call one dog and I work him on a whistle, you know, left and right, but they pretty much know, you know, what we're fixing to do. Actually, they know it too much. They're jumping even before I tell them to, and they're jumping in the correct order and everything. They're just a step ahead of me, and that's the deal with this deal is not training them to do it, but trying to keep them fresh and honest after you do 100 shows a year. But anyhow, we do a cutting demonstration. I'll cut 2 dogs. And, you know, the announcer will say the dog's trying to get back to the car and I'm holding him back like I would a cow. And anyhow, they go back to the car and then I'll look to the gate and Susan will be at the gate and turn 1 or 2 horses loose at liberty. And they'll come in to me and I'll just crack my bullwhip and walk around and they'll either play or I'm live, one of the two, and I'll tell them a poem about Mustangs while they're at liberty going around me like in a figure 8. And then we'll take a run around the whole arena. And I've got a lay down on both of them. And when we stop, they'll take a lay down and then they'll roll. And depending on which night it is, some nights I put an old 1-horse trailer on the back and I'll open the door and Trigger will go get in that trailer. And I'll shut him up. And then if I'm riding Poncho or Nude, I'll jump them in the car and sit them down and start the car up and we'll ride out. So that's basically, you know, every night I may go from horse to horse, you know, change it a little bit, which maybe the crowd don't catch it, but the people that are at the rodeo every night, they'll catch it. Oh, he's riding a different horse tonight, or he put a different horse in the car, or he added the trailer, you know. I try to change it up. You know, I change it up for 3 or 4 nights a little bit to where they can see a difference from night to night.
That's fabulous.
That is so cool. So, man, I first saw you at the Mustang makeover in Fort Worth. Years, I don't know. It was probably 2000. Losing track of time here. I don't think it might have been 12. It wasn't 2012. It was before that, I think.
I started in 11. Poncho was my first. I had Poncho and Lefty in 2011. That was the first year I tried.
Must have been 2011. And then we went back in 2012. But I know we were with J.W. Brooks and his family and Wileen.
Yeah.
We were with all them and got to meet you.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. We've actually interviewed other people who worked with Mustangs, but every person, because Mustangs are a little different than the average horse, but every person who works with Mustangs has a different angle, different thing they do with them. But
Yeah.
It was so fun to see what everybody did. And then what you did, it's just a different energy. So how did you get started with Mustangs? It's just really cool to, you know, understand sort of the backstory, and now what you're doing with them is really remarkable.
Well, you know, when I was a kid up in Canada, some people lived up the road from me, Chuck Aylett and Tom Bishop, and they had 4B Ranch Rodeo and Wild West show. And anyhow, Chuck was a heck of a hand. And I worked for him cleaning stalls and whatever, but that's where the Wild West show part comes from. And then after I got to Texas and, you know, I trained cutters and calf roping horses mostly. I used to show reiners back in Canada and pleasure horses and whatever. And anyhow, I got down here and had a training stable and sold horse shavings and traded with the King Ranch and, did the cutter thing mostly. Till, the early 90s. But in, let's see, in 90, I started a metal art business. I basically did that for 20 years and rode horses kind of along with it. And then I basically quit riding for a while. I mean, this story could go so many directions. I actually got into water skiing, and I bought this place and built me a water ski lake, and I was all about water skiing for years. And then I got back into the horses because one of my customers was a cutter, and they were getting ready to go to Augusta, and we stopped by their place, and I worked a horse for them. And man, I probably hadn't worked horses like in 10 years at that time. And they were like, holy crap, why ain't you riding horses? And they were getting ready to go to Augusta to the fraternity, and I basically tuned their horse up for them, get them to hold his stops and whatever. And so they owned Handlebar Dock. It was Kelly and Woody Bartlett. So they gave me a colt. They said, you go pick one out. We're going to give you a colt. We want you to start riding again. So I started riding again. Oh, let's see. At the time, I had pretty much quit, and I was driving a truck. I always sold hay and shavings. I always had a truck. And my buddy, Jeff Payne, a bit and spur maker, long about 07, I think, like that, he said, there's this Mustang makeover thing going on in Fort Worth. You need to go watch it. And I kind of just blew it off, and yeah, I will, someday, whatever. I was trucking. And so this goes on for 2 or 3 years. In 2010, he bought Susan and I tickets, and he says, you're going this year. Let's go watch this thing. And that was the year Taryn Munch won it. I was blown away. I mean, Mustangs were totally different than I even imagined. I'd never been around them. I thought they were just little wild ponies, So I was very impressed with the horses. I was really impressed with the trainers, what they did in 100 days. And I was getting tired of trucking. And let's see, I think that was in September, maybe. And right around there, maybe November, I parked my truck and I hung my shingle out again to ride horses. And I was going to do the Mustang makeover the next year. And like I said, I hadn't rode horses for a long time. So I started riding colts, and I had no idea how to put a lay down or crack a whip on one or any of that. So I started basically practicing with these colts people were sending me. And, they would come see their colt, and I'd have them lay down and stand up and crack a bull whip and do all this stuff. And they're like, wow, we didn't know we were going to get that. I said, well, I'm actually practicing, how to do this. So that's how I got to the Mustang makeover. And my performances go back to when I was a kid watching the Wild West show. That's just the way I think. That's what I like. I always liked the old, performers and old rodeos. And so that first year with Poncho and Lefty, I had that swinging bridge deal, and I had my old truck, and I went in there riding a surfboard behind Poncho, and did my horsemanship thing, and at the end I jumped him in the back of the truck and drove around and out. And I know that year people are saying, who in the hell is this guy? Where'd he come from?
And everybody stood up and cheered.
yeah, they did. And so the next year, or actually, when we were driving home from there, my wife said to me, how are you going to top that? What are you going to do? And that old picture around from, I don't know, Pendleton or somewhere, and early 30s, that gal's jumping over a car on a horse, you know, and I said, I'm gonna find me an old car, you know, and get my horse to jump over it, you know, maybe even ride in it, you know, and I got right on Craigslist looking for that car, you know, and I found it. We got home, and the next day I said, let's go look at this car. It was in Dallas. So I did, and it's the car I got now. And I said, oh, perfect, perfect. A Dallas policeman owned it. And he had several different cars, and I knew I was flat broke. I didn't have no money. And they told me it'd be about a month before I got my winnings check from the makeover, which I was fourth and fifth, and I think I won 15 grand. So I told that guy, I said, I'll take your car, but I won't get my money for about a month. And I said, I'll come back if you still got it. And he said, oh, it's yours if you want it. Just tell me, you know. And I said, well, I want it. It was $1,100. And so there was a couple guys from Fort Worth, friends that would drive down on the weekends and watch me work the Mustangs that previous year. And we become good friends. So I told them about this new act I was going to have and this car I found, and I was going to go buy it when I got my winnings check, you know, and they said, oh, send us the link. We want to see that, you know. So I did. Well, the next weekend, here they come driving in my place with that car on a trailer. They went and bought it for me, and they said, okay, let's see you do it, you know, because they were into watching me, you know. So I worked all winter, you know, I cut the roof off it and, you know, made it a hardtail and got it running and did all that. And so the next year with this horse I called Maypop that was the act I did. And, you know, I won it, number one, you know, it changed my life. And then it got, you know, I guess all over YouTube or Facebook. I wasn't even on there at that time. And, you know, people started calling me about maybe doing this at a rodeo. And, you know, so that's how the rodeo thing got going. And that's all my acts are from the Mustang makeovers. So, you know, in the rodeo world, well, in both worlds, I guess it's different. You know, people hadn't seen it, and I wasn't trying to become a specialty act. It just turned into that. And because I didn't, you know, really watch much rodeos or look up specialty acts to try to come up with an idea, I just did the way I think, you know. And so it's different than everybody else, and it's gone over well. It's treated me really good.
Well, and this year you won Specialty Act of the Year, didn't you? In
Yes, ma'am.
23.
5 times now I've won it.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
You know, I think that there are trainers, but then there are those people that have that special connection. And I think you're one of those with that special connection. Have you ever felt like you had a special connection with animals and realized that you have a special way?
I think maybe a little special. I don't think I'm no better than anybody else. I mean, training horses is training horses, like training Mustangs. Once you get, I mean, I'm not Mr. Horse Whisperer, you know. I'll try to get a wild horse in the round pen, and I'll work them in draw and try to get them to me. But if they don't, you know, in a certain amount of time, I will rope one and get on my Houston horse, and I'll get him leading that way and get a halter on him. Are you still there?
People don't
Yeah,
put roosters.
we're here.
People don't
Okay.
put people don't put roosters in round pens. People don't talk to pigeons. So okay, you got the horse thing. You got other animals in here that you're talking to, and they're talking back, and you're understanding them. How is that possible? Tell me how you do that. I want to talk.
Well,
I want to talk to a pigeon.
one year I was at Glenrose at a ranch rodeo with my Mustangs, getting them ready for a makeover. and there's people riding around, and then I saw this baby bird, which I thought at the time was a buzzard, fall out of the rafters. And it landed in the dirt, and everybody kept loping around him, and I happened to be talking to a couple of my friends, and I said, go over there and get that little bird before somebody steps on it. My trailer was right there. And anyhow, they put it to the side of the arena, and everybody's gone and leaving, and I went over, and the little bird was still alive in the sand. So I called my wife and my daughter, and I said, this baby bird fell out, it's going to die. Do y'all want it? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I just put it in the feed bucket in the trailer, and we went home. Well, it turns out it was a pigeon, and they got a syringe and some formula and went to feeding it, and basically saved it. And as he got a little bigger, I would get we got a cockatiel, and I would get some of that seed, and it would eat out of my hand. So then I started blowing a whistle and then feeding it. And every morning I would blow my whistle and then go feed it. And then I would blow my whistle, and when it started getting around, it would come to me. And it flew from the coffee table to me, was its first flight, after I blew the whistle. So this goes on and on. He's in the house, and then I'd go outside in the summertime under the oak tree at the picnic table, drink my coffee in the mornings, and I'd be down there and blowing my whistle, and here come that pigeon right down there. And I always carried that seed with me in my shirt. And then later on, that was the year we were training for Mustang Million. I remember being out there loping, and that pigeon would be flying circles with me. And when I'd stop, it'd land on my horse's head, between its ears, or on the saddle horn, or on my shoulder, and I'd reach in there and give it a little food. So that was my first, knowing you could pretty much train a pigeon. He would get in the sink and lift his wings, and Susan would turn the water on, and he'd take a bath. I mean, he was pretty, and hated my daughter. My daughter's the one that saved him, and he would fly and land in her hair and just go to pecking, and there'd be people that come up. Well, Slim, the bit and spur maker, come up one day and was watching me work my horses, leaning up against the arena fence, and here come Woody flying off that saloon I had, and landed on him and just pulled his skin, and he's like, get this dadgum pigeon off of me, and I'd be over there laughing. He's kind of about half fighting Rooster, but he was always good with me. So anyway, I don't know. I'm always trying to change my act a little bit. So I originally wanted a buzzard to ride on the front of my car.
Everyone does, Bobby.
Well, I had a friend in Alabama that had a raptor center, kind of a rehab for birds, and they had a buzzard. His name was Leroy, and they, saved him or whatever his problem was. But I was at the ranch, and he'd be flying around, and Woody'd go, Leroy, Leroy, and that's rascal fly down and land in the yard and just hop over to him, and I knew you could train a buzzard. And if I can't recollect his name, but there used to be a rodeo clown, and he had a buzzard that was sit on his barrel and go land on the bull, and actually wound up touring with ZZ Top. He had 3 buzzards, and there's a picture of one on either arm and one on his head on the ZZ Top stage. And so I knew you could train them. And I was telling my buddy here in Hico about it one time. And we were out on the road rodeoing, and he called me. He said, Bobby, I got you a buzzard. He said, there was a baby buzzard in the barn, and I caught him. And I went, all right, He said, come get him. And I said, well, I won't be home till the fall, He said, well, I'll take care of him for you. So then I started Googling and looking, hell, you can't own a buzzard. it's $100,000 fine if you get caught with a pet buzzard or a crow.
Huh.
You can get a permit to shoot them. You can shoot them, you know, if they're pecking your calf's eyes out or whatever, you know, you can shoot them, but you can't own one. I thought, well, hell, that ain't gonna work if I'm going in a, you know, arena with 10,000 people and a buzzard. Surely somebody's gonna call him and say he's got a pet buzzard. So anyhow, I got home and I said to Annie, I said, what about the buzzard? He said, oh, I had to turn that rascal loose. He kept whipping up on my dogs and he got meaner than hell, he said. So anyhow, he turned him loose. Well, I wanted a cockatoo, you know, a parrot. But hell, they're $4,000 or $5,000, you know. We went in bird shops and I could just see my dogs eating my $4,000 or $5,000 real quick. So I thought, well, I'm going to experiment with a rooster. They're not too expensive. So my friend here in Hike will give me Chuck, we called him. And this was last spring. So he was a little bitty, you know. And we went out on the road and the same thing. I'd blow my whistle and feed him and treat him like I did old Woody. And he'd run to me. He'd fly to me. Until one day I went to pick him up in the cage and I couldn't reach and get him, and he learned he could get away from me. So then I had to go to training on him. I put a little hobble on him and brought him to me and, you know, taught him to stay on the car. And we did this all summer, you know. I put him in a little cat box and I'd put him on the car in the trailer where nobody could really see him. But I got him used to the performance. I mean, I'm shooting guns, I'm cracking whips, and, you know, a lot of it is around a fair environment, you know, where there's motorcycle rides. So, you know, same thing I do with my dogs. I take them and get them used to that stuff. So I got old Chuck used to it, and he learned to ride on that car. And man, he had his picture taken more than my car has in 10 years. But I mean, by the rodeo contestants, they just laugh and go up. And he just sit up there. And then he got to crowing. And he got to doing it all the time during the national anthem. He'd sit up there, flap his wings and crow. And so everybody got a laugh out of him. And anyhow, we come home and he got stepped on and died this fall. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll try me a couple pigeons. So this time I got homing pigeons and I got 2 of them, thinking I don't know if it's going to work. You know, I don't know. But I'm thinking one, I'm going to, you know, leave on the car, train him to stay there. Another one, I'm just going to leave loose. And maybe she can throw him up and he'll fly to the car to go to the other pigeon, you know, or I'm working on it. And I don't know, it's looking pretty good right now. We'll see.
And I saw, of course, I peeked. You're using that whistle again with the pigeons, right?
Yeah.
That's what I saw.
Yeah, I get them out every morning. They're here in the house. They're right over there, Bonnie and Clyde. And you know, I get on the Google and internet. Well, they got a pigeon harness and a flying leash and all this stuff, you know, that I had no idea. Whereas old Chuck, I put a hobble on him. Well, these pigeons, they would come to me. And there about a week ago, I'd clean their cage out and change your food and water and get everything. And I'd let them fly around in the house here and they'd come back to me and I'd put them in. Well, I'd go to grab them and they started running and getting away from me. And they'd go land up there on the wall on a picture or something. I thought, I'm going to put that little deal on y'all if y'all don't come down here, you know. So I did. And actually did one this morning. It's got this little harness I put on there, and it's like an elastic 15-foot lead rope. And so I put him on the back of the sofa there, and he went to do that running away from me. And I just held on to that, and it's like a elastic band. He's out there flying, but he come back to me. And then I'd sit him down and I'd pet him, and then I'd go like I'm desensitizing a horse, you know. I'd go like I'm picking him up, but I wouldn't. And then I'd walk away, then I'd walk back and reach down to pick him up. And then he just started staying there, you know. So after a couple days, now they're flying back to me, and if I want to reach and pick them up, they'll let me, you know. It's just, you know, it isn't all horse whispering or pigeon whispering. It's just like kids. There's a black and a white, you know. And when I'm in the middle of my act, you know, when I ask my horse to lay down, he's got to lay down. You know, I ain't got time to wait on him. And the same as a pigeon. If I call that pigeon, he needs to come, or we don't need to do it, you know. So I'm learning every day, but they're back to, you know, we went through that for a couple days. Now they're flying back to me, and I can't hardly keep them off of me. So we're good friends again, and now they let me pick them up when I need to. So
Oh, I love it.
Well, they've also,
you know, it's just, I get these ideas and try to figure out a way to do it, but it's not.
they've also seen videos that you're out there with a shotgun. So I think that's on their mind too, just a little bit.
Well, it's, you know, it's something they got to get used to, you know. And in here, you know, I'll hand feed them, and they'll peck seed out and it'll land on the floor. So I get the vacuum out. Hell, they don't even move. I can vacuum right around them with that loud vacuum cleaner, and they don't even move. So, you know, I've already started them out on the whip, and they don't seem to mind the whip. And that's the way I do a horse and my dogs. I crack the whip, and then I'll shoot my gun. Crack the whip, you know, and I'll just sneak that gun in every now and then. And I've never had a problem really getting my horses or dogs. I mean, the dogs don't like it, but they'll stay and put up with it, you know, and hopefully these pigeons will too. I mean, there's so much going on, and let's see, I've got, what have I got? Half a dozen critters out there to try to keep a handle on all at the same time, you know. So I do every one at a time, and then you got to put them all together, you know. And then what happens? You drive the car out and you do your deal. Then they think it's a rodeo time, and then they're adrenaline. My dogs, my horses, you know, maybe not the rooster, but their adrenaline gets going, and they're not 100% normal. I mean, I can go rehearse my horses and my dogs, and they're absolutely perfect. But during the show, they're 1 or 2 steps ahead of me because they hear the music, they hear the announcer, and they're all jacked up. They love it, you know. So I got to get them used to, you got to put the car up there and kind of just ride around at home here and train your horse, but make sure that car's in there, and you just go stand there and rest. Because if they think every time you got to jump in it and sit down or jump over it, when they start going to it, they're ready to do that. And I can't have them that way. They got to, you know, it's like scoring a rope horse, you know, you can't do what you're going to do every time. You got to, I spend all my time undoing what I just did, basically.
At the rodeo, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so you also were into motorcycles at one phase, right?
Yeah.
And, and so when are we going to see a motorcycle in the act?
Well, that motorcycle, you know, that was in the period of time where I wasn't really riding. And I don't know if you've ever seen it. The first one we built 3, but it turned into be what we called the rodeo chopper. And when it was in a frame, I took it around and I had it autographed by several different cowboys, Jim Shoulders being one, Harry Tompkins being one, Guy Weeks being one, Larry Mahan being one. And then, of course, you know, Monty Henson, Donnie Gay, Ty Murray, Tuffy, you know. And anyhow, I painted it like a road map of the country with all the big rodeos on there. And it's quite the bike. It's quite the bike. But now, you know, those guys are passing away, a lot of them old guys, you know, and that bike is just, you know, drop dead gorgeous. You know, it won Easy Riders Bike Show of Dallas, and the only other bike that ever beat it was another bike that we built. And yeah, that was a different phase of our life, but my friend still has that bike. Yeah.
That's amazing,
That's cool.
Bobby. Well, what has surprised you most about the animals that you've been with that have been in your act? What surprised you the most about them and working with them?
Everything. I mean, everything, just the loyalty.
Tell us the story about one time you went, holy cow, this rooster or this horse or this dog is smarter than I thought, or something.
Well, the very first day I worked with a Mustang, which was Poncho.
Mhm.
Okay. I know nothing about Mustangs, nothing about wild horses. I just, you know, adopted them on TV, on RFD TV when they had the auction. And he wasn't even the one I picked. They lost the one I picked, and I wound up taking Poncho. Anyhow, I got home with him, and I had a round pen set up, and I had worked him in the round pen, and I roped him. He had a halter and a lead rope, and I couldn't get nowhere near him. Probably could now because I've learned more, but like I said, he was my first one. I wound up roping him, and I had a big old using horse, and I went to, you know, snub him up, get him stopped. I'd get, you know, I never really choked him. I just asked for a little pressure so I could release and get him coming to me. And as soon as I asked for a little pressure, he flipped over on the ground and laid there like I killed him. You know, he just reared up, flipped over, boom, laying there. And I was like, well, get up, get up. You know, I went over there and clucked to him, and he sits up in a sitting position, just sitting there and whinnied at me. I think I'm like, holy smokes, what just happened? You know, he just talked to me. So I got him up, I moved him around again, and I still had the rope on him. So then I asked him again. I just got backed up, you know, put a little pressure on him. Boom, he flips over, lays there like he's dead, sits up and whinnies at me again 3 times. And I think that's my whole deal changed right then. I broke a lot of horses in my life, but I've never had that experience, you know. And it was almost like he was saying, what the hell are you doing to me? You know? So at that time, I saw that wasn't working. So I dropped the rope and I went in there like a pickup man would. I got going real fast and reached down and got that lead rope that was on him and got a dally on him and got him stopped. But when I pulled him with the halter on at the end of that lead rope, he'd walk up, I'd release, and I had him walking just in no time. So if I didn't choke him, if he didn't get that choke, he was coming to me, you know, and we just, I mean, that was on a Friday. Monday, I was driving a cow on him.
Wow.
I mean, I never seen a horse just turn around and want to learn and come on and be my buddy. He got out of the stall one night, went out there in the morning, and he was missing. And I like to have a heart attack. Where in the hell's Poncho, you know? And we looked and we looked and we looked. Well, I guess he got out and he walked in between the trees and got him some briars. And he thought he was hobbled. And he stood there. I don't know how long he was sitting there. I just walked up and got him and cut the briars and led him back, you know. But, you know, he was different from the get-go. You know, different than any horse I'd ever start. He wanted to be your buddy, and he was willing. I just figured out the ways to show him. I mean, he totally, I think, changed my horsemanship. That's one example right there. You know, and I've had them both ways, you know. I've had them where they're double tough too, you know. So I don't know, you know, but I've had a lot of experiences that have really impressed me. But as far as blowing my mind, it's the loyalty that they've shown me. I mean, like at Pendleton Roundup, you know, it's a football field size arena with a track around the outer of it. It's huge. And during the there's an area there before the steer trip and in the barrel racing where they work the ground, and they wanted me to go out there and do a little performance, like a 5-minute deal. I said, yeah, I can do that. And there's 50 people horseback down there loping circles by the roping boxes, and barrel racers getting ready, you know. And I go up there, and I guess I was on poncho, and I'm riding around. I go out there and I whistle, and she turns trigger loose. And I had people come up to me later that were sitting in the stands. They just couldn't believe it. I mean, he kind of went by all them horses down there that were loping and everything, and he come right to me, and we did our figure eights and laid down, and I got on him bareback and ride him around and rode him out. Just the loyalty of him not running off on me in that big arena with all them horses, you know. And he's been unbelievable, you know, the things I've done with him. And we did a deal in Wisconsin back early in the spring, and it was at a gun hunt club, and it was like a big golf course they had out there, and I had to put a show on out there. No fences, no nothing. And they said, can you do that? I said, yeah, probably can. And we did. I mean, they were tight to me too, and I mean, they could have been run off and gone. And that's the stuff that surprises me the most, basically, is their loyalty.
So do you feel the connection is different with the Mustangs than all the cutters and all the reiners and different horses that you trained?
You know, I've trained, I guess, one quarter horse year before last since I started messing with Mustangs. It's been all Mustangs. And had I had the program I got now, back when I used to train ropers and cutters, it'd been interesting because I didn't know how to, you know, really desensitize them like we had to do. And, you know, when we went to the Mustang deal, especially in the first few years, we did the cow horse thing. We usually roped something, or I did in my freestyle. You know, we had the reining class, the trail class. And, you know, so there's a lot of exposure to a lot of different stuff that, you know, like cracking the whip and turn them loose and around pen and have to go catch them. You know, back in the day, if I had to do that with my quarter horses, they'd have been gone, you know, because I didn't have them broke that good. So, you know, the Mustangs definitely made me a better horseman. I think there is a little bit of loyalty, maybe more there once you, like I said, once you get that first touch and they know they're not going to be threatened or hurt by you, and then you become more friends. I think there might be a little more loyalty than the barn raised horse, you know, that's been, you know, bred to be there, that hasn't, you know, there's different things, you know, like on a Mustang, like coming out the back of a trailer or coming off a cliff, they just slip off it like a snake. They don't squat, take a big leap, you know, like most of your quarter horses do, because they hadn't been brought up in the wild and had to go places, you know. So the Mustang, as far as they might be watching, you know, on man-made stuff, but as far as rocks and rivers and logs, and I mean, they're like riding a four-wheeler. They're the best thing ever, you know, to go catch cattle on, or, you know, stuff like that. I think there's that difference just from the way they were, you know, running wild as opposed to a quarter horse. But you can't deny the genetics of well-bred horses today, no matter what event, that they're bred to do that event. You're not going to get a Mustang to go cut a cow like a metallic cat, or, you know, whatever. And the same as a barrel horse or jumper, you know, you can't go beat them genetics, but for an all-around horse, I mean, it's pretty hard to beat a Mustang, you know. So
Bobby, I think in your hands, it's pretty hard to beat any animal, whether it's a pigeon or a buzzard or whatever it is. And we could talk to you for a long time, and but we got to get out of here. But I want you to promise me you'll come back and tell us some more stories. Would you do that? Would you?
oh yeah, we ain't even got started yet.
That's what I know.
We could have the Bobby Kerr series. I think that's what we need.
I think that's what we need. And maybe have your pigeons join us. I mean, by that time you'll have them talking in 2 or 3 other different languages, and we can just talk to them about you.
I've enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Well,
Thank you, Bobby. It's been a pleasure.
Robin.
You bet.
Robin, we need to find out how we're gonna follow Bobby and know where he's performing and how to get with his social media and stuff, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. So, Bobby, if people are curious, website, Facebook, Instagram, what's the best way? YouTube. If people want to find out more, see some of your acts, where do they find you?
Probably the best thing is Facebook, you know, Bobby Kerr. You can go to bobbykerrmustang.com. We do have a website. We'll probably keep up and post more stuff on Facebook, you know, than anywhere. We're on Instagram too, but you know, obviously you've seen us trying to get hooked up to this call. We're not real high tech. So, you know, I don't tweet and do all that stuff, but Facebook, we do that.
Awesome. Well, we will include in the show notes all of the information if people want to check it out. Click on it. See more. There's YouTube channel. Bobby's on YouTube. You can find a lot of fun stuff to see these. You need to go look him up if you're watching or listening. Really, really great entertainment. There's a reason he's won 5 times now, Specialty Act of the Year. It's unique. He's an artist in like any different way you could imagine, dreaming up specialty acts or how to train a horse or creating metal art or painting motorcycles, restoring old cars, you name it. Thank you, Bobby. It's just been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
We can't wait to have you back.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Bobby.
it.
Thank you, Bobby. Thank
You bet.
Robin. And Bobby, you're going to be receiving my wife for training, so I just wanted to let you know, okay? So,
Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next week.
Right after we completed interviewing Bobby, he let us know that he'd been writing some poetry. We asked him to share, and we couldn't leave this episode without letting you hear one of Bobby's poems.
I'll read you this one more. You got time for one more?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Absolutely.
Okay. This one I call In My Mind. Been riding broncs, but I'm getting old. Take it easy nowadays is what I'm told. But I miss the wild of yesterday. I got the cowboy blues, you might say. Now I'm still starting colts in my mind, and they're wild and bronky as you can find. Big old feet, and they are wilder than most. You better have 2 wraps on that snubbing post. Sack 'em out easy and go get your wood. And yes, I'd cinch him up as tight as I could. Now a saddle's on his back, and he don't know why. When we turn him loose, he's gonna kick to the sky. And when he's done, I'm ready to try my luck. I'm under the swales and ready to buck. Well, he may never have got 2 feet off the ground, but I didn't lose my seat, and I'm still riding around. So I rode him like a champ in my mind. Hell, I'm not too old, just might be in my prime. This cowboy may look like an old son of a gun, but in my mind, I can still get her done.
I love it.
This program is made possible by Summit Animal Health. If you have a dog, cat, or horse with mobility issues, Summit Animal Health has the all-natural, drug-free solution that comes with a satisfaction guarantee. Summit Animal Health products are used by Olympic gold medal equestrians, leading rodeo stars, professional dog trainers and handlers, and people just like you. Whether working companion or couch potato, Summit Animal Health can keep them moving. Check them out online at summitanimals.com. New to Summit? Use the code VIEW15 and receive 15% off your initial order. We'll see you next week for another View from the Summit.